On tonight's episode, Nelly and Joe discussed The Empire Strikes Back. We discussed The Mandalorian. We break down the James Bond trailer. We talk some Black Widow. And much more. I'm Garrett.
I'm Nelly.
I'm Joe. And this is the Aliens and Cowboys podcast.
Welcome in, guys. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing great.
It's been a couple weeks, Joe, since you and Nelly have been on an episode together.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
I think it's been
a while.
a couple weeks since I've done this podcast in general.
It has.
Sadly, yeah.
You know, and I think it's been a couple weeks because we had the episode where we kind of put Nelly on his pathway to Star Wars.
Yes.
And we're going to check in on him today here and see
so
how
excited.
far he's made it, what he thinks. We do know he is watching The Mandalorian, so you caught up on The Mandalorian.
Yep.
Okay. I'm excited because James Bond trailer dropped today.
Yeah, man.
And this movie looks awesome. And I don't know if that's where we want to start. If you guys would rather start and just deep dive some Star Wars, talk about Star Wars as long as you guys want, and then we'll move on, or what would you guys prefer?
Let's talk some James Bond for starters, man.
Okay,
Let's make sure we
works.
get to that. That just dropped today.
All right. So, Joe, initial thoughts on this trailer?
It looks freaking amazing. I already had pretty high hopes because we've talked before off mic about Daniel Craig, multiple Bonds. We actually have, if you check our archives, we've talked about James Bond on a couple different occasions, including a debate once upon a time that we had for who the best James Bond was. So this is no stranger to our conversations here, but all that being said, I know that we have kind of different feelings on Spectre, Quantum of Solace, Daniel Craig's overall presence as James Bond. I think has been very, very strong, but it has not been without some missteps. So I was really anxious, excited to see what this first trailer would be, and it looks outstanding. I'm very excited. It looks like it'll be a good blend of classic Bond moments, the action, and the intrigue. It looks great.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that one of the things I was previously on this podcast a very big skeptic of Lashana Lynch coming in as Agent 007. I'm okay with that. The preview makes her character look, how should I say, very cold, very calculating, exactly like James Bond, Daniel Craig's James Bond has been. So I'm eating crow here. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be fantastic and it's going to be amazing that she's 007. That's just whatever as a traditionalist. But I will admit that I was wrong. It looks like her character will develop very nicely. Her character looks like it will blend into the story very nicely. And she'll be an interesting character. Now, I will stay on the record wholeheartedly. I still do not want her to be 007 going forward post this movie. Like, since we're going to have to replace Daniel Craig, I don't want Lashana Lynch to be the James Bond character. Okay, so
that's what she's doing?
She'll be codenamed 007. So at the end of Spectre, he retires.
Oh, okay.
And it'll be a couple years. Looks like it's 2 years, I think, from the trailer that he has been away.
Yeah, I believe so.
So I like I said, I'm excited for that. I know Phoebe Waller-Bridge is involved. Looks really good. Mm-hmm. We get some characters back from the previous episodes. We get Jeffrey Wright.
Yep.
We get Christoph Waltz as Blofeld.
Correct.
We get what's her name? It's his girlfriend, Lee Sadu or whatever her name is. However you say that.
Yep.
We get obviously Q back. Ralph Fiennes, Naomi Harris, all the people. And then, of course, the new baddie is going to be Rami Malek.
Yes.
And I'm really curious on what his character will be. From the looks of it, it looks like his lady is not somebody he can trust. And I know it's Dr. Madeline Swan is her name from the Spectre film. It looks like he's going to have some trust issues if they're still together. There's something in her past, whether she's connected to Rami Malek, which is what I'm theorizing, that maybe they were dating, married, something, a relationship of some kind. But the action, like you said, looks great. Even down to the shot of him in the tunnel where he turns and shoots and fires the gun like the gun barrel.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Looks outstanding.
Nelly, what do you think?
Sure.
You're not a diehard Bond fan like we are.
No.
You've seen a couple of them, not all of them.
It's been a while, but yeah.
Let's just take it this way. So not as a Bond film, because you're not necessarily a Bond fan. As an action movie, do you think that movie looked good enough to go see it in theaters?
Yeah, to me, yeah. Because I'm a Daniel Craig fan, too.
Yep.
So, plus the action, you know me. I love
Yep.
my action movies. So,
Yeah.
definitely be one to probably go see in the theater.
Do you think leading up to this film, you would make a point to see the other James Bonds that he's been in that you've missed?
Yeah, it would be Spectre was the latest.
Spectre was the last one,
yeah.
and that's generally considered to be the worst of the 4, which let a lot of people down.
Yeah.
Skyfall, though, which you also I don't believe has seen, has
No.
Javier Bardem as the villain.
Okay.
And that is considered to be, by many, the best Daniel Craig James Bond.
Yeah, I'll probably go back and watch all of them.
You probably
leading
should
up.
just start at the Casino Royale like I will and just work our way through it.
Yeah, I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah,
Start
it's
at the
gonna be-
beginning.
it's gonna be
Start all
awesome.
back through.
It is sad, though, because I think, he started playing this, I want to say, in 2006. Is that how long it's been? So it's been about...
right around there.
Yeah, been about-
It would
what,
have
Sounds right.
Yeah, 13 years,
13,
something like
yeah.
that. And he's, obviously as a 007 GoldenEye fan that we have discussed on this podcast previously in the archives where we debated, GoldenEye versus Halo 2. I liked Pierce Brosnan, but again, I'm on the record, and I think, Joe, you're on the record too, that Daniel Craig's the best James Bond.
Oh, absolutely.
And and at this point, I don't actually think it's close. It's not that I don't agree with Sean Connery's thing. I think there's an argument to be made that these modern movies are not necessarily better stories, but just the pure action and the way they took his character, it outpaces any other Bond film, right?
Yeah.
Just like even though I might like Michael Keaton better as Batman than Christian Bale, the Dark Knight trilogy from Christopher Nolan are just superior films in every way, right? Because of what they're able to accomplish with cinema today. So even though there are some people that are probably at home saying on the record that Sean Connery is the best James Bond, or Timothy Dalton, we might have fans of them, or George Lazenby, or even Pierce Brosnan. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying the themes of these Bond films under Daniel Craig and the dark tone outpace and are superior to any other James Bond film.
Yeah.
It would be cool. Don't get me wrong.
Totally
I would love to have seen a Daniel Craig take on Jaws, and a Daniel Craig take on Odd Job, and a Daniel Craig take on Dr. No. Like there would be really neat aspects of seeing him in those retro storylines. But these storylines, like Le Chiffre was an awesome villain from Casino Royale, right? Javier Bardem's character, Silva, awesome character. Blofeld leads a lot to be determined in Spectre, but
which was kind of unfortunate because it's Christoph Waltz,
Yes.
He's such a phenomenal actor. So it was kind of a letdown with Spectre. A question for you guys, and Nelly, I know you haven't seen all of Daniel Craig's Bond movies all the way through, but they do all kind of interconnect with one another.
Okay.
So they're almost direct sequels in a way. At least Quantum of Solace, you've seen that one, for
Yeah.
sure directly connects right up to the back end of Casino Royale.
Yeah.
So those are directly connected. But they all kind of interweave with one another.
That's good.
Are you guys fans of that, or would you have preferred, in retrospect, that they would have done more kind of the standalone adventures with Daniel Craig?
I like how they go back to back.
Okay.
Makes it more interesting, I guess. Keeps it fresh, in line.
I agree. I like, compared to other Bond films where they don't do direct sequels, I like this direct sequel because I think you could build on the storyline. Now, do I agree with them taking the Spectre storyline and somehow trying to write that everything is interconnected? No, I don't like that. I'm fine that Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace were, at the beginning, sequels to one another, and then they left those two alone. Then they did Skyfall, and then Skyfall was its own thing, and then now you get Spectre, and this seems to be more of a direct sequel to Spectre based on the characters that we see in the film.
Agreed.
And even though, again, they try to make Blofeld as far as the overall architect, I think it makes Skyfall great because Skyfall is kind of the standalone Bond film at this point. I also like it that you can develop more storyline. You have more fleshed out characters. Like, I'm hoping that they learn their lesson with Spectre and that Christoph Waltz's Blofeld is going to be better character in this. Almost maybe like I don't know if they would do this because he looks like he's in the preview. He looks like he's in prison, which I believe he is, or he's in lockup somehow.
It looks very similar to when they captured Javier Bardem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks very similar to that.
I would be interested to see if they could approach it like a Dr. Hannibal Lecter relationship with Clarice Starling, where Rami Malek's character, for whatever reason, is outwitting him, outperforming him, beating him at every level, and he's having to go to Blofeld and get kind of that advice as former adopted brothers. Granted, it's a played out trope of people going to Dr. Hannibal Lecter type characters, but it would be because I don't see how you're going to utilize him as a villain then. So unless he's just going to be a brief cameo, which why put him in the trailer then if he's a brief cameo? I think there's a way that you need to utilize him without him breaking out of prison and all of a sudden becoming the top baddie again.
Yeah, I totally agree. I hope they don't go that route. I don't want to see him breaking out and then going back to the top of Spectre and running this huge criminal organization. I don't want to see that.
Right.
But I agree with you. I think there's a a way to utilize some of these tropes that we've seen played out time and time again, admittedly, just like you're saying, where he goes back to kind of ask the former criminal mastermind how he can kind of succeed against his current foe. Yeah. But I think they could do that very successfully, especially in no small part due to the fact that it's Daniel Craig opposite Christoph Waltz. That's fantastic. While I think Spectre dragged at times, more than just at times, the whole movie kind of dragged, in my opinion, I guess, to be honest with you. But still, there are some shining moments there, and I think Daniel Craig across the board has been phenomenal. While I don't think Christoph Waltz was utilized to his full potential, nor was it as engaging as it could have been, he is such a phenomenal actor that it still helped carry a lot of those scenes that he was in. So seeing them interact again in this movie, I think would be really, really great. So I hope we get more than just one tiny little scene with that.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is, with Christoph Waltz as being such a phenomenal character in movies like Django and Inglourious Bastards, where you see him work with Tarantino, he's just great. And I think that this is that same type of character that you could have utilized as he was in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah,
this villain. You don't have to make him as like over the top and like outgoing, but just calculated speeches and just the things he says, and his dialogue could just have been phenomenal, and they just not take that approach with him. So again, I agree with you on that disappointment. But another trailer dropped too, and Nelly, you might not have much to say on this one as a huge Marvel fan, but Black Widow came out. And I remember, Joe, I watched this and I texted you and I'm saying, this movie looks really good and it looks really funny.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of people out there that argue that they didn't want this movie made, or this movie should have simply been made earlier. I like this movie. I'm okay with the timeline. I don't care that she has arguably passed away in Endgame. I think this is a great storyline. I think that this phenomenal action sequences in this film. David Arbor coming in, and I don't know what his character's supposed to be. It's some old Russian that he can't fit into his costume.
It looks so great.
Looks
man.
awesome.
Yes.
And I would go on to say that this, purely as an action film, I don't know where it's going to sit as far as Marvel universe, because there's not really, she's one of the characters without any powers. But as an action film, I think it's going to be really good. As a Marvel film, it's still going to be better than a lot of the other people's individual spin-off movies. It looks better than Iron Man 2 and 3. It looks better than Thor 1 and 2. You know what I mean? It's going to be, you're going to have to rank it up there with the Black Panthers, the Doctor Stranges, and the Thor 3. It's going to be that good. And I don't know who her sister is in the film. I know she's from Midsommar, I think, the movie that came out this last a couple months ago, kind of like the psychedelic horror film.
Yeah.
I think she stars in that. But it's just fascinating. I think it's great. Her character has a lot to go off on a backstory. Of all the characters in the Marvel Universe that we've seen, she's one of them with the most interesting backstory that we don't get. My only critique of this in this film is it seems a little John Wickish. It seems like it's going to be like Ballerina, kind of like Atomic Blonde. Not in the same story as Atomic Blonde, but this idea of these strong female spy movies. And I'll be there to see it. I'm going to go see it.
Oh, yeah, I'm very excited for it. As you guys probably know by now, I'm a huge David Harbour fan. So to see him in a Marvel movie in this capacity, playing this kind of old, out-of-shape badass is really exciting. And his character's name is Red Guardian. Okay. And he's basically, yes, the Russian equivalent of Captain America. Okay. Except he's about, I don't know, years past his prime, clearly, as opposed to Captain America, who never seems to be out of his prime. So I think it'll be a really great juxtaposition to see that kind of character in a certain way, at least, portrayed by David Harbour, which is really great. And yeah, the whole ballerina school that's secretly an assassination organization kind of thing. I'm not bothered by that. I think, to Black Widow's credit, now with Black Widow, I'm not a comics aficionado by any means, but I think that this backstory was already built in for her, technically long before Atomic Blonde or John Wick kind of took a similar approach to it, So in terms of that doesn't bother me so much. It just looks like the cast that they have for this movie, regardless of what backstory or plot they want to give it, I think they'll be able to carry it on that alone. Based on Marvel's overall positive track record, Garrett, I completely agree with you. There are some outliers there. Thor 1, pretty solid. I like Thor 2, not so much. Even Iron Man 2 and 3, not so great in my opinion, taking all the movies as a whole. But I think this is a great example, kind of like what Winter Soldier did.
Yes.
Where they're grounding this really more as an espionage spy thriller, it looks like, versus over-the-top comic book action, with superheroes. So I like, once again, that they're taking a step back and giving us more of a grounded, focused, kind of a superhero story set more in a reality that we can better understand.
So what's the timeline on it? Where is it supposed to follow?
So accordingly, it takes place after Civil War.
Cool.
Okay. Now, here's something I did not know, and this is my ignorance as not a comic book fan. So, also, just other people that are going to appear in this film. Scarlett Johansson is obviously Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. David Arbor, Alexei Shostakov, which is Red Guardian. Florence Pugh is Yelena Belova, Black Widow as well. So it seems to be that these
really?
characters that we know Black Widow of, that if you are a spy in this situation or this agency or this group or organization, you're also, all of you are Black Widows. Because Rachel Weisz is in here as well as Melina, also codenamed Black Widow. So it'll be really interesting. Other people to join the cast, though. Ray Winstone's going to be in this. And I'm a huge Ray Winstone fan. He played Beowulf. He was Mr. French in The Departed. He's just awesome. Yeah, big fan of his. So super excited that he's in this film. It's an undisclosed role at this point. Also, William Hurt returns as Thaddeus Ross. And Robert Downey Jr., I believe, is making his final appearance as Tony Stark.
Yes, I believe so.
So that is going to be really fascinating. I think a lot of people are going to be clamoring to see him as Tony Stark. Obviously, I'm sure it's not going to be a big, significant role,
right,
but it's still going to be nice to kind of say goodbye, to see him in alive.
Exactly. And I think that's why, for people maybe not understanding why they're choosing to do this now, I don't think it's an afterthought, which I think maybe is what some people's frustration stems from. I don't think that. I think they probably mapped this out. Maybe originally it was. Who knows? But I think that they probably mapped this out because now you're getting the two biggest, spoiler alert, you haven't seen it yet. I finally saw it, by the way. Finally seen Endgame.
Yeah.
The two biggest deaths that came from that movie, I would say, are, of course, Black Widow and Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. So to see them, just as you said, both alive,
yes,
in this movie, and we know they're going to survive to the end of this movie because it's set before the events of Endgame. That'll kind of help soften the blow that came with Endgame, I think. So it's
I agree.
perfect.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that is, I know that Robert Downey Jr. and obviously even Black Widow, unless they eventually will do a Black Widow spinoff somehow into the Marvel TV television series, how are they going to bring her back?
Right. They can totally
I don't think Tony Stark is going to appear again. I think this is going to be his final goodbye. I don't expect him to be in the film long. I think he's going to come in, make some quippy comments, be as Tony Stark of old. Maybe you see him as Iron Man. I think you will.
I think, yeah.
But I think that's going to be the last time you see him in this role. And it'll be good.
Yeah.
Excited for that.
Me too.
What's really interesting, though, is, like I said, we are both on the page of saying we want to see this spy film. The reason why I bring this up as well is because, obviously, Elizabeth Banks, you weren't here for this. We covered it, I think, a couple weeks ago. She had those comments blaming men for not going to Charlie's Angels, the reboot of it. And she made the comment that men don't like women action heroes. And she did specifically, people were, quoting at her, people like Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel and how successful they were. Others quoted Atomic Blonde, Black Widow coming out. I have absolutely every belief that people are going to go see Black Widow. This movie is not going to fail.
No.
There was, after the failure of Charlie's Angels, and I'll be on the record, I owned both the original Charlie's Angel movies with Cameron Diaz, Lucy Liu, and Drew Barrymore. I owned both of those on DVD. It's not that I'm not a Charlie's Angels fan. I also acknowledged I did not know the movie was out at the time. I only saw posters of it up in my local theater. I didn't even see previews really for it, except I think we saw one preview for it, but I didn't not in a release date. So I wouldn't have even known to go to this movie. And then the fact that Elizabeth Banks took this pathway on this movie for its lack of success really just made me go, I'm not going to go watch this movie. But she did get another movie. She's going to do The Invisible Woman. And I only bring this up just to kind of throw shade at her because there was a comment on Twitter that is the audience going to be Invisible 2 that goes and sees it? Because I think she turned a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And I think that in spite of her, I'm going to go see this. I'm going to go see Black Widow because, A, I think it's going to be good. I'll go see Black Widow just to spite Elizabeth Banks at this point. because I thought that was just a really bad way to move it. So, Joe, I know you weren't here for that conversation, but anyways, moving on off of trailers.
Yeah.
Let's get into some Star Wars here.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, before we get to Star Wars, I want to talk about a few things. So,
sure.
I saw Knives Out.
Oh, yes, you did. You saw Knives Out?
And I'll just tell you, we have obviously been pretty brutal to Rian Johnson on this podcast, as we're going to continue to be. Not for this movie. Knives Out was a very well done movie, and the reason why it's also worth bringing up is because Ana de Armas.
Yes.
If I'm butchering that, I apologize. She was fantastic in Knives Out, and she's going to be fantastic in the new James Bond film. So they kind of
really
pull
good.
that back around.
Yes.
But Daniel Craig, also in James Bond, surprisingly, was great as Benoit Blanc, and he is so funny. It's kind of like an old feel film where it's regular whodunit. You're trying to figure out this murder mystery, and in fact, it's no spoiler alert, you kind of find out who actually technically does the killing within about the first 15 minutes of the film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was really kind of like, whoa, that kind of turns you on your head there. Great cast. Don Johnson has kind of had this resurgence. So
He has, yeah.
Joe and I cover the Watchmen for Nixon podcast or Watchmen television series, and Don Johnson's in that show. Don Johnson is fantastic in Knives Out. I know everybody's a big Chris Evans fan. He does good. Not in it as much as you would probably want him to be, but Don Johnson, Michael Shannon, those two guys are just fantastic in this movie. And what's her name? I'm trying to think. Oh, Nick. I'm trying to think of what her name is.
Is this in theaters or on a streaming?
This is in theaters right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would tell you if you have a chance to go, it's a very good murder mystery. It's kind of I think it's based off of an Agatha Christie novel, kind of like Murder on the Orient Express. If you saw that film and you liked it, you'll like this as well.
Has it been out for a while, or
came out in November.
Okay.
November 27th, actually. It's Toni Collette. Toni Collette is in this movie as well, and she does a fantastic job. So I would recommend seeing that. But Joe, you saw Frozen 2.
I did.
Tell us about that.
I saw Frozen 2. It was really great. So in my household, we're a big Disney family. So
I'm gonna go see that too.
Yeah, it's really good though. We've watched, of course, all the Disney classics. My daughter right now is very much into Frozen in every capacity, and has been for a year or two now. Whenever we first let her watch the first Frozen movie, so we both, my wife and I especially, enjoyed that movie, but seeing this one now in theaters with our daughter was really kind of special. This is the first movie that she's seen in theaters, so that was really cool. But overall, in terms of the movie itself, really enjoyed it. It definitely has some darker thematic tones to it, and it leans into them a little more. So I would say that the first Frozen, for everyone who's seen it, is definitely not shying away from tackling some complex things. But Frozen 2 just leans into it that much more. So there are definitely some darker things, for people out there who haven't seen it. If you have kids and are thinking about taking your kids to it, I encourage you to certainly do so. My daughter's 4. She did just fine with it. But just be prepared that depending on what conversations you've had with your kids, if you have really young kids, there might be some things that come up as a result of going to see this movie. So, yeah, but super good. I recommend going out to see it. The animation is outstanding.
I just remember the trailer coming out when she was hitting the water and then freezing as she was going with the waves. I thought that scene was pretty dope, actually.
It's epic. Yes, agreed. There's another scene. I don't want to spoil anything. There's another scene where she uses her powers in a sustained way very frequently. And it's like watching kind of a superhero movie, It just blasting her ice powers out around her and everything. It's cool. It's a good movie, good songs. A good time for the whole family, so I enjoyed
Olaf in it still?
Olaf's still in it, very much so. He's dealing with kind of an existential crisis because as he has gotten older, he's also now learned how to read, and he's questioning his own existence in a way as well, so it's really good.
Never seen Frozen.
That's right, you have not.
Is he the snowman?
He's the snowman.
Okay. Is there like a moose?
There's a reindeer. Yeah,
reindeer.
Sven.
Okay. I've never saw it. It's on my eventual to watch list, but I probably won't make it to the theater as one with no kids.
Fair enough.
My wife has no interest in seeing this film, which is funny because she's such a diehard Disney fan. As you know,
I know.
She's diehard. We go to Disney every year. We're going to Disney in January.
She doesn't want to see Frozen 2?
Doesn't see Frozen
interest?
1. Just no interest.
They're really good.
We'll sit down and watch Monsters Inc. or Monsters University all day. Like we just love that stuff.
Yeah.
for some reason, she has no interest in watching Frozen. I don't know if it's the songs. They got kind of played out for those who hadn't seen it.
Sure.
From the first one, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something else, just to mention briefly as well. The songs, like all the songs in Frozen 2 are really outstanding. They're really good.
I heard they're dark.
Some
like
of
if
them
you
are
actually
super
like
dark.
read the lyrics of the songs, they're very depressing.
For a kids movie
children's
specifically, yes. And that's kind of the themes that I'd referenced if you haven't had conversations with your kids about death and darkness and the grief that comes along with death.
Yes, turn on Disney Plus and have those conversations.
Yeah, right. I mean, it is something that it might prompt a conversation if you have not already had that, because I don't think I'm spoiling too much by saying that it's a Disney movie. Things are pretty happy by its end, of course, by the end of the movie, but there's some dark moments in there, some darker songs as well. The songs themselves, just as you said, Garrett, are darker for some of them. But then on the flip side of that, there's some super funny ones, and Kristoff gets like an 80s power ballad in the middle of a movie, which is really hilarious. Like the kind of silliness in terms of the 80s power ballad probably is going over all the kids' heads, but like watching it as an adult, and it's got the wind blowing in his hair like 80s music videos.
As an adult, you'll get it.
Yeah, you'll definitely get those kind of references. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's good.
All right, this is what we're here for. Let's break into some Star Wars. So what I want to do first is let's talk about, Nelly, where's your journey taking you? You've watched what films?
The first two. I just watched Empire Strikes Back.
So you watched
it yesterday.
Have you seen A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back?
Yes.
Okay. Which one do you like better?
Maybe the first one, just because, I don't know, I'm still trying to get over the fact how old it is and the CGI. The CGI, like you said, went a little over the top on the second one.
Okay.
But overall, I mean, I'm into the story. I'm liking the plot of it, and some stuff is a little wishy-washy, but...
Like
overall,
what? Give us some detail.
The timeline, I guess one example, like how Luke, all of a sudden, he just knows everything at the beginning. In the first one, he was just a farm boy, and then all of a sudden he just knows how to fight. And then in the second one, where he crash lands on the planet to find Yoda, he's like on there while they're fighting the starship, and he's just training, doing handstands with Yoda. And then all of a sudden he just knows how to do it all. And then even in the first one, he just all of a sudden knew how to fly the ship. Didn't really go into detail how he trained or anything. Just kind of.
Let me just set this. If you think that is wishy-washy, wait till you get to the new trilogy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
But overall, I mean, I'm gonna keep watching it. It's intriguing. I'm trying to look at it as if I were back in the '80s. Watching that movie. Just looking into it like, pretty cool story.
Totally.
And it makes me wonder, if when that came out, if back then they thought some of that stuff was gonna be around now. Like Jetson style, like all that future stuff was gonna really be happening.
Right, like the speeders and everything like that. Yeah, what technology are we gonna
Do you
have?
not read the opening scroll? This happened a long time ago. The galaxy's far, far away. Which was funny because somebody tweeted out today. He's like, "Why are you guys all shocked about Star Wars spoilers? Stuff already happened." You know what I mean? So it was really great.
I did read it. The first movie. Is it say it?
It kind of breaks down what the movie will be about, which is I think that in itself was probably groundbreaking at the time. To give you like a synopsis rundown of the film, the scroll.
Oh, the scroll. Well, the scroll itself, that actually wasn't brand new to Star Wars per se. So Lucas based a lot of that on a lot of the TV shows. So he pulled a lot of inspiration from Flash Gordon, for example. A lot of the pulpy kind of heroes, in addition to, obviously, there's themes of Westerns in there as well as the samurai. So he pulls in a lot of different things to kind of create what we know as Star Wars right now.
Which is cool. I like that aspect, the Western type of it.
Yeah, totally. I love the convergence. That's one of my favorite things about it, is you have kind of Western themes. So, like, you can totally see Han Solo as a space cowboy, right?
Yep, exactly.
But then at the same time, you definitely have the samurai influence on the Jedi. So it's this convergence of themes and inspirations that kind of come together, which is really cool.
Do you have a favorite character?
Probably pretty obvious. I mean, I like Han so far.
You like Han Solo?
Yeah.
Okay. How about a least favorite character?
C3.
C-3PO?
Yeah, he's still annoying.
Fair enough. It's funny, and I might get some hate for this. I don't know, but like I grew up. So you have not seen Phantom Menace yet.
Nope.
I don't think
So he's not. Yeah. So he's only seen the two films.
Okay, so Phantom Menace. Have you heard of who Jar Jar Binks is, though?
Yep. That's what. Yeah, they said that last time around that he might take over and be the more annoying one.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. But I grew up. I was 9 or 10 when I first saw Phantom Menace, and so Jar Jar Binks never really bothered me. Like I was the target audience at the time, right? For Jar Jar Binks. So people that were older, like people who were in theaters watching the original trilogy, now seeing Jar Jar Binks, I can understand why they might be put off by that. But as a kid, being that target demographic, I was like, oh yeah, he's the new C-3PO. Basically. Like it just didn't bother me at the time. And now as I've gotten older, watching all of these movies again, I'm like, yeah, they aren't overly that much different. Like the kind of annoying character that provides some comedic relief. That's definitely C-3PO in my opinion as well, the original trilogy. So,
what's your take on? So, it's interesting you said that you like A New Hope better because a lot of people would argue that Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars film, besides the Rogue One movie, the standalone movie. Why do you think that you? Let me ask you this, because I think when I was growing up and the first time I watched Empire Strikes Back, what I didn't like about it was the fact that it seems like everything ends on such a down note. Right, that Luke gets his hand cut off, the Han's frozen. Basically, the Rebel Alliance group that we're following, the heroes that we're following, are kind of scattered.
Right.
So did that have an effect on it? Like it was such a more of a negative input versus like blowing up the Death Star as this like successful mission at the end. So you end on a high trajectory.
I think another thing that kind of a lot of the fighting in space, I guess a lot of it in the second one, I kind of didn't really like that so much. I like more on the ground, I guess, when they're doing the lightsaber on the ground fighting with the laser guns or whatever you call them. I'm more of that, not so much the ships battling out.
What do you think of Darth Vader?
I guess he's just, a badass. Lord Vader.
You'll address him as Lord Vader.
Well, and I love this because
and how he just chokes people out with the Force.
Right.
Well, and for anybody listening at home, please remember that Nelly has never seen Star Wars before.
Sorry.
This is what's so great is like it's somebody that's in 2019 watching a 1980 Star Wars film, whereas if you were to take somebody from 1980 and let them watch today's Star Wars film, like it's just completely going to blow their mind, right? And I think it's interesting because, like you said, this is really especially A New Hope, is grainier. It's not as great as far as, like I said, you're going to get to the prequel trilogy, and you're going to be like, oh, this is better. Like, I really fully believe you're going to like the prequel trilogy better than you're going to like the original trilogy.
That's what I'm waiting for, all that CGI, all the new improvements and stuff.
Correct.
I like the story, though, the storyline to it.
And do you think that's going to be, like, I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to end up appreciating the prequel and the sequel trilogy more than the original just because of, like, the difference in, filmmaking now.
Because I want to watch them all now and then get caught up and watch the new one that's coming out. Like
awesome.
It'll be my first time ever going to the theater to watch a Star Wars. So I'm kind of
that's awesome.
For that.
He's going to be dressing up. He's going to put on like an Obi-Wan Kenobi outfit.
Whatever.
I see you growing out your beard there for it.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, but yeah, I totally agree with you, Garrett. It's just I was really excited to talk to you about this tonight because I truly don't think I've encountered anyone that has just now recently been watching them. I've obviously been talking with people throughout my entire life who have seen them many times over, and then I've talked to plenty of people who still have not seen them. But I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who, like, within the past couple weeks have seen them for the first time.
Yeah.
So this is really exciting for me, too.
Yeah.
What other questions you have for him, Joe? Ask him away.
No, I think you have a great line of questioning going here. I know we're putting you on the spot now.
No, that's fine. I had a couple questions, too.
Bring it.
Who Darth Vader's talking to in the hologram,
That's the Emperor.
Okay.
So
what's his name? Or he's just
the Emperor Palpatine.
Oh, okay.
He'll become a bigger character in the prequel trilogy. So his role essentially is they don't introduce, like, Darth Vader is technically called a Sith. A Sith is a evil Jedi. Okay, dark side versus light side.
Yeah.
They don't really broach that subject until the prequel trilogy, where they start to introduce the idea that there are Jedis and there were Siths. And then you start to learn that there are Siths, and that Palpatine starts off as a senator in the Republic. So he's just a guy politician, but he's actually a Sith in hiding. So he's maneuvering all the chess pieces around the board in the prequel trilogy, where he consolidates power in the third movie to become the Emperor. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is he on another planet station somewhere
Yes,
else?
that's the
Okay.
hologram. Yeah.
Taking the original trilogy as a bottle, let's say. So like A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back. You've watched those two thus far. Return of the Jedi, which will be the next one that you watch.
Okay.
As a self-contained original trilogy, you'll get a lot of answers there too. They don't explore a lot of the Emperor's backstory in Return of the Jedi by any means. That's what Garrett's saying. You'll get that in the prequel trilogy, the newer trilogy. But you'll still get within the original trilogy pretty much everything you need to know about him in the next movie. Which is to say, not much. You don't learn much. You know that Vader, as scary as he is, even he answers to the Emperor.
Yeah,
so
when that came on the hologram, I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
so there's another top dog.
Yeah,
besides.
exactly.
So he makes a bigger role in Return of the Jedi, the third movie.
Okay.
But the other thing you really just have to simply know is when you come across him in the prequel trilogy, he doesn't go by the Emperor. He goes by Palpatine, Senator Palpatine.
Okay.
So you need to know that his name is Emperor Palpatine. So when he pops up that name, because the understanding is he's going to be in this next movie coming out, or some incarnation of him is going to exist in the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I heard a theory today, and maybe it's a spoiler on Rise of Skywalker, that not necessarily is Rey not a Skywalker, but that Skywalker is going to go forward as a euphemism for anybody who is a Force user.
Yeah, I'd heard that as well, and that it's not then a family name; it's a title, essentially, like almost like you would be Sir as a knight. If you were knighted, you were now a Skywalker as a Jedi, or whatever.
If they do that though, it's hard for them to walk away from the Skywalker saga.
That's true.
But
yeah, if you're calling
everybody who's a Force user post Luke Skywalker a Skywalker, then it makes it hard. Anyways, digressing. What other questions you had, Nelly?
Do they show what happened? Because there was a scene where one of the lieutenants, or he's walking into Darth and he's putting on his helmet and his head looks all burnt or scarred up. Do they show
Yes.
how that happens? What happens?
So the prequel. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just Well, I don't want to ruin Return of the Jedi necessarily. You learn a little bit, nothing about the backstory, but there's a cool scene in there toward the end of the movie. But you will learn how that all happens from the prequel.
Okay.
So the original trilogy, which you're watching right now, is the story of Luke Skywalker. Okay. Mm-hmm. What happened was, from my understanding, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, George Lucas wanted this to be a story of like a redemption arc about Darth Vader. So in the prequel trilogy, the story is going to base around Darth Vader as Anakin Skywalker, who is Luke's dad. Mm-hmm. So you will see him as just like you see Luke Skywalker now, because he doesn't become Darth Vader till the end of his trilogy. So
like, was he good?
Yeah,
he was originally.
Yeah,
He was
yeah. He's hangs out with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda and those guys, and he's a Jedi in training. They find him in the first Phantom Menace movie, and they start training him up, and he's a good guy. And you'll see that there's a story of why he becomes a villain essentially, and it's you have the story arc of the Skywalker saga, as they call these 9 films now. So you have the Anakin Skywalker story, the Luke Skywalker story, and more than likely in the new trilogy it's the Rey Skywalker story, but we don't fully know that yet. And that's just hype, it's a hypothesis at this point. But the overarching story is that Luke, or they brutally introduced this prophecy in the prequel trilogy about bringing balance to the Force. And that's that Anakin is going to, as Anakin, so Anakin's Darth Vader, that Anakin's going to bring balance to the Force. And that's the premise. And so by the time you get to Return of the Jedi, you start to understand the prophecy a little bit more. And so it's like, once you get to Return of the Jedi and finish that and go back, you'll start to hone in on...
Put it all together.
Yeah. So...
and of course, in this one, it's the infamous line of Luke, "I'm your father," and he just freaks out. It's a little dramatic there. It's like, no!
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah.
What'd you think of Lando?
He looked familiar, but he's a pretty good character. I mean, obviously, he kind of betrayed him, but he said he had to. But then at the end, he kind of redeemed himself and helped him get out. But I liked his character.
He'll pop up in the new one, the next one coming out.
Yep.
He's
in Return of the Jedi as well, so he'll be back in the...
Yep. So some of the Star Wars movies that you aren't going to probably watch within this saga are the Han Solo movie, exists on its own, and which, by the way, theory that Han and Mara or Kira are actually Rey's parents.
Oh yeah. I've heard that theory too.
Yep. Sorry, digressing. Spoiler alert. To continue our long history of spoilering it and then giving you the alert. The Rogue One film. Okay. So Rogue One, those are not movies you need to watch within this saga, but they are
within
ones
these
you should
6,
watch.
Right? The original trilogy and then... prequel trilogy.
And then the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi are part of the new trilogy. But
Okay.
Rogue One sits on its own. You
Okay.
can definitely watch it because it fits within the timeline.
Yeah.
But it's not actually a Skywalker film.
True. In terms of quality of the movies themselves, I highly recommend you watch Rogue One eventually.
Yeah,
It's super good.
so-
It's more of a war movie that happens to be Star Wars, and that's kind of how they approached it. So while, just like Garrett's saying, it certainly still contributes to the trilogy you're watching right now, it butts up actually right to the beginning of A New Hope. So it's still set within that timeline, but the events more or less take place as a standalone film
So it
and as a
takes place
standalone war movie.
Before A New Hope.
Yes,
Pretty
like,
much.
like literally right up to
before,
it.
like the moments that end.
Well, I think Nate
Rogue
was explaining
One.
this last time. It shows
okay,
up to where
yeah.
he boards the ship.
Yeah,
and
they're
then
basically
like,
chasing the ship at
That's
this
where
point.
it
Yeah.
starts right there.
Exactly
Okay.
right.
And it's probably got. I mean, it's a lot of people, as far as trilogy goes, believe that Empire Strikes Back is the best film. Okay, those who say Last Jedi are clearly wrong, but a lot of people would also argue that Rogue One is just simply the best Star Wars film made because it's just so different and it's a standalone. It's not necessarily a trilogy, so they could do a lot of things that the other movies couldn't do. Definitely successful. It's really done well, and it's got probably one of the top 3 scenes of the all time in Star Wars films with Darth Vader just massacring a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
So obviously the Death Star is one that got destroyed in
Yep.
the first one. So right now, or in the second one, Star Destroyer, is that the new ship that is called?
No, so Star Destroyers have existed.
Yep.
In the
Okay.
in the first movie as well. So the Death Star is the ultimate.
The big old
villain.
plane. It looked
Correct.
Okay.
The second one, they're on a Super Star Destroyer, I believe, at the time, the Emperor Star Destroyer or something, and they will eventually go back to the Death Star in the third one. They'll basically start rebuilding it.
Okay.
Get to see Vader's Superstar Destroyer too.
Yeah, which is
The
awesome.
Executor. It's fantastic.
Yeah, which is great.
How do they communicate with R2 and Chewie? It's kind of just they just know.
That's the Star Wars magic.
Yeah,
man.
just
yeah.
okay.
It's one of
They're
those
just one of the
things
things
that,
they're just going and then
Yeah.
beep 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 and they just know what they're saying.
right. They kind of make fun of that in Solo a little bit because that's been one of the things you're absolutely right about. All of the movies where it's just like some people understand Wookiee and you just go like, oh. Okay, yep. Like
Yeah.
they can understand Wookiee, and obviously Chewbacca can understand Galactic Basic, so we're good here.
Yeah.
You know, and no one really ever questions it. So they do make fun of that a little bit in that Solo standalone movie.
Okay.
He's like trying to make Wookiee noises for the. I don't think we've ever seen that in a Star Wars movie, at least before, where a character tries to make Wookiee noises back to Chewbacca. So they poke fun at it a little bit in the Solo standalone movie, but
Right on.
yep, that's why. Same with the astromech droids like R2D2. It's just one of those things that. They beat back and forth. C-3PO, I think, literally knows what's being said. And then sometimes with Luke, it's like a general interpretation. Or when they're in space, when he's flying the X-Wing, it'll like pop up on a readout as well. It's like R2's talking,
Oh,
kind of
okay.
like as his
Like a-
co-pilot in the back, and then it'll
Like
pop
a
up on a
translate,
readout.
pretty much.
Kinda, yeah.
Gotcha. What were the big things, the big Transformer robots called again? The ones that they're fighting at the beginning in the
Oh, the Imperial Walkers.
walkers. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
you see a different version of those in the,
AT-ATs.
in the Return of the Jedi,
All right.
which kind of in the Mandalorian, the the last episode you saw
with
in
the
the
red
Mandalorian.
with the red eyes.
That is
That's
what
just
you
a
see in Return of the Jedi. It's more of like a smaller
Upgraded
forward.
version,
No,
or
it's a
smaller?
smaller version. That
Okay.
the AT, what do they call it? The
AT-ATs are the big
the
four-legged
big
ones.
right. Those ones are more powerful
Correct.
essentially than the smaller Walker.
AT-STs are the...
And then in Empire Strikes Back, is that Boba Fett? He
Yes.
was taking Han.
That was
That
my
is
next
Boba
question
Fett.
for you.
Okay,
Is
and
what-
then,
what's your thoughts on Boba Fett?
He's not really too much in this, too much, but
He's
I
actually
mean,
not really in the trilogy a lot. So he is, in all sense and purposes, like the iconic cult fan, favorite of this trilogy. And he's not in it very much in the second film. He's in it way less in the third film and just goes out like a total idiot. Okay, so spoiler alert. He gets a somewhat of a revival in the prequel trilogy a little bit via his father.
Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously now we're going to get some potential, I believe, and I'm on the record that Boba Fett has been in The Mandalorian twice already. Episode 1
strongly
and
disagree.
Episode 1 and 3. In the background, you will see a Mandalorian turn to face the camera from a non-position of facing the camera. He will literally turn to face the camera and he has a red T visor. That is Boba Fett. So on the record, I believe it is. Joe says no. So
I'm
You
saying
said episode 3 too. You said
episode 1 and 3.
So
So
is what you're thinking.
yep. And so I'll tell you, they're doing it every other episode. So next episode, if there is a Mandalorian that will face the camera with a red T, that means we're on to something.
And you don't think it's it because of he's missing the patch, or you said, or what was?
There's not enough iconography of who Boba
Yeah.
Fett is, and yeah, I just there's no way that they would do that. I strongly disagree that that's him. Now, I'm literally, I know none of you listening can see this. I'm wearing one of my favorite Boba Fett shirts. I'm a huge Boba Fett fan. So would I still be okay with him showing up in The Mandalorian? Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'd be really awesome that they confirm he is still alive. But in terms of what we have seen thus far, that's absolutely not him. So, if you are right, Garrett, I will just have to be, I don't even know. I'll be happy to be wrong in a way, but I'm so adamantly opposed to the fact that that's him right now.
I'm going to
that
never let you live that down.
I know, you won't. It's true.
And many other people that we know who have questioned my intelligence on this.
And was that a IG?
IG-88 droid.
That was it. Okay.
Yep.
It looked familiar. And what the one from Mandalorian was IG-11?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just-
Same. They just look.
Yep.
Just upgraded.
Yeah, and they have like, gosh, I don't remember if it's old EU, because that's, do you know Disney scrapped all the old books? Have you?
I think I heard you guys
Yeah,
mention
okay,
that.
yeah, so the movies are all canon.
Okay.
So Disney is treating that, those are events that happened. But prior to Disney's takeover, there was hundreds of books that existed that explained and expanded more about the Star Wars universe. Disney threw all those out the window. So Boba Fett, even in the movies, yeah, spoilers, it looks like he dies. In the books, they brought him back because he was such a fan favorite character, right?
Okay.
Well, Disney's takeover threw all that out. So in Disney's world, he has not been brought back yet, which is why speculation exists that he is in The Mandalorian in some capacity as well.
And that's why
He
they can
is.
just pull stuff from everywhere into the Mandalorian.
They can't. Yeah, so right now they're doing a lot where one of the showrunners, so you've got Favreau, which is doing an amazing job. He's done a great job with Marvel, and now he's doing a great job with The Mandalorian. And then a gentleman named Dave Filoni, who was also one of the showrunners, writers, and directors for The Mandalorian. He worked on both of the animated series, Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and those are also considered canon by Disney. So they did not retcon that and say that those did not happen. So the animated series that also exist out there that Dave Filoni also helped with, those are considered canon still. So in The Mandalorian, they're picking a lot of things that exist in the current universe, and he's paying homage to some things outside of the existing Disney canon right now as well. So I'm very excited. I'm such a huge fan of Dave Filoni, and I think Star Wars is in very good hands between Favreau and Filoni and their entire team that they have right now. It's fantastic. Very excited.
How many episodes have they announced that they're going to have? Or
This first season, I believe, will only have 8 episodes.
8?
So we're halfway through now, essentially. It does seem like it's... The last episode was more of a bottle episode, it felt like, But at the same time, I think we're probably, after the series has ended, going to be able to hit play on that very first episode, and it's going to feel like a long movie. You know, I'm getting that vibe from it so far.
yeah, they're kind of short. That's one thing I don't really like.
Yeah.
Short episodes. And they're kind of Quentin Tarantino, like at the beginning, how it shows chapter 1 and then does like the
That's
cowboy
a Western trope.
thing. Yeah, that.
It's great.
Before we get to Mandalorian, because I
Sure.
want to jump in on that one, let's finish out on the films here. Do you have any more questions on the films?
No, I think good for now.
Question for you though. What are your expectations for Return of the Jedi? Like, what are you wanting to see? Anything you can think of?
Not at the top of my head. I guess just keep going with the story and see where they go with Luke. I mean, that's the one I did see that one a long time ago, because that's one where Princess Leia kills Jabba, right?
Correct. Okay, so you have seen Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, chokes him out.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yes.
A long time ago. That's one of the only scenes I remember. But yeah, I remember seeing that one.
Okay.
So
Yep, that is in...
That's
they're all
one of
like
that's one of the cooler.
they're like out in the desert or something.
Yeah,
and they start
Jabba's
falling
palace.
down. And
Yeah.
That is just one of the better opening scenes, and it's just a really fun aspect. I really like Return of the Jedi.
Oh, I did too. Return of the Jedi was for a long time my favorite film.
Same here.
Yeah, so, and I've said it before, that opening 20, 30 minutes maybe of Return of the Jedi, that's some of the best Star Wars that's out there. Rogue One, and now now The Mandalorian, has rivaled what I thought was the best 20 to 30 minutes of Star Wars, but it's a phenomenal opening sequence. It's really, really great.
There's a funny thing. So be on the lookout for this when you watch Return of the Jedi. When Luke Skywalker enters Jabba's palace and force chokes somebody, they have retconned this now that he did not force choke him because it's a
he's totally
force choking is basically a dark side versus not a light side maneuver. Okay, the good people only push people, the bad people choke them. Okay, and so you'll see that Luke will walk in these like warrior hog things are gonna put an X up with their swords to prevent them from coming in, or their axes or whatever it is, and he's gonna basically point to both of them, and they both just fall back choking and dying. And they've come out and said that that's not him force choking them.
Yeah.
That he's just pushing them. I'm like, no.
And they're panicked, so they're literally like,
Yeah.
like they're like,
Can't
they're
breathe.
just panicking so much that they themselves maybe can't. Yeah, and it seemed, as a kid watching Return of the Jedi, I assumed that he was choking them, and I assumed that it was to analyze his wavering on, struggling with the pull of the dark side. And that made total sense to me.
Oh, see, as a kid, I didn't care either way. I was just like, okay. He's a Jedi Master now.
He can do what he wants.
He's total BA right now, right?
Yeah.
I do have another question too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was it the first one? You remember you guys were talking about Darth's kill count, whatever you said.
So I made the argument that on screen, on
is
the
that
big
the one
screen.
from the first one where he takes out?
Yeah,
But does he really take him out, or did he just teleported?
He kills him technically, but that's because
okay.
Obi-Wan gives up and gets struck down.
I thought he just
No, but like I said,
way.
for all the people out there listening, listen to this. Go back and watch these 9 films or 8 films again. The films, not the Clone Wars, and not the comic book series. Talking about the 8 movies we see, his kill count is actually not that impressive outside of like sand creatures, younglings, and dudes on the spaceship in Rogue One.
I don't understand your argument though. Like, is it to show he's not menacing?
No,
or that
I
he
think
needs
he's
to have
menacing.
a high kill count.
I think he needs to have a
because-
more important,
more
kill
high
count.
profile.
I don't
Yes.
think he needs to at all. You get all the menace that you need from him as he exists currently on the screen. All the menace you need from him.
I guess what I wished he would have done in Return of the Sith or Revenge of the Sith, is I wanted to see a little bit more of taking out other Jedi, not children necessarily. Spoiler alert, Nelly. He just works a bunch of kids. But I would like to see him like Order 66. Would have been fascinating to see him somehow have been incorporated in Order 66, working other Jedi. That would have been cool. Like it would have been neat because, like I said, outside of killing Obi-Wan Kenobi, which again technically he gives up. Not to say he would not have defeated him. He does take out Count Dooku, which is probably his most significant death or killing.
Agree. Yeah, that duel in, once again, beginning of Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
That shows his mastery, I think.
That's the only really significant kill he has on camera in the big screen. I'm just saying, as a villain, as iconic. Jaws is probably the other most iconic villain, and Jaws has a way higher death count of significant people. Darth Vader needs to have a higher kill count of significant people. That's all.
Well, I just so disagree with you on that.
That's okay.
Because sure, if you're talking about we don't see him kill really all that many Jedi, I guess I can't argue against that from the movies, but he's choking to death Imperial officers that are probably technically higher ranked in some capacity. Because keep in mind, he kind of exists outside of the standard ranking
the military hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's just force choking people left and right when they piss him off. He clearly only needs to answer to the Emperor, and he can go off doing just about whatever he wants. And then outside of that, yes, and I know you don't want me pulling from the comics and the extended universe that's current Disney canon, but if you want him proving his menace through the type of people he's dispatching, you need look no further than the current expanded universe.
Okay,
which
no,
is
and that's
full of it.
And that's where it's like, give me those stories. Give me those
Yeah.
Darth Vader stories. But I'm interested because Nelly's watching this. We're going to get another person's opinion on this as he goes through this journey. As Nelly Skywalker over here goes through this saga, we're going to get his opinion on Darth Vader's kill count. So keep tracking that.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
When they're on the planet or whatever, the Mars planet, Yoda's planet.
Sure. Yeah, Dagobah.
When Luke, what was it called?
Dagobah.
Dagobah. when Luke is like giving up, he's like, I can't do this, and he's walking away, and then Obi, he's standing there, whatever, his ghost says, he's our last hope, but then Yoda says, no, there's another one.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
You gotta wait. No,
I gotta wait.
No, make him wait.
I'll make you wait.
Make him wait.
That's fine. I just caught that. I was like, I wonder who he's talking about.
Yeah,
Let's move to The Mandalorian. Joe, you have not talked about The Mandalorian. It is your favorite television show.
It is.
Ever.
Yeah.
Do you think, is it ever? Is it your favorite television show ever?
Yeah, and it's for just many, many reasons. So let's start with the most obvious. As I've mentioned probably far too many times, Westerns overall are actually my favorite genre. So love Westerns, grew up watching them, the mythology surrounding it, the huge catalog of movies. It's fantastic. It's a big part of my upbringing was watching a lot of Westerns, okay? Obviously, I love fantasy and sci-fi, though, as well. So Star Wars, even before The Mandalorian, was had some of those gunslinger tropes in there. So it was kind of bringing together some of my interests, right? Well, now we have it in all of its glory in The Mandalorian. It's something that I can still sit down, and I don't let her watch all of it, but my daughter wants to watch it. So, I'll let her watch it. It's something I can share with my family. It's got the Western themes. It's got the Star Wars themes, of course. Obviously, it's Star Wars. It's everything that I've pretty much ever wanted in a show.
All in one.
All in one. And
That's
it's
awesome.
Outstanding. Yes. Yeah.
I do like that Western feel to it.
Yeah.
Especially the opening, the very first episode where he just comes in and, does work.
Let's talk some Baby Yoda.
I can bring you in cold.
Yeah, that one.
So good.
That was
What do you guys have thoughts on Baby Yoda?
It's pretty much the most adorable thing I've ever seen brought to.
And they already got a bunch of memes.
They do have a bunch of memes.
I will say it's really great, and I agree with this observation that other people have had, where it's like in this time where it seems that Star Wars fans are very divided, and a lot of this has to do, Nelly, with the newest trilogy. People haven't particularly cared for where Disney is, and Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams have taken the trilogy, right? And how they've treated some of these classic characters. But then comes The Mandalorian, which is kind of helping bridge this gap. And Baby Yoda is a big part of that, I think, because just from his adorable factor, but he's also really powerful. And he's mysterious, right? There's all these things that make it so compelling. So I think it's a great character. I really like how that, once again, juxtaposition, there's your word for the day, the badassery of The Mandalorian paired opposite the adorable cuteness of Baby Yoda, and how these two are kind of slowly forming this very dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
It's great. It's something that I think parents can directly relate to. Like in the most recent episode where he keeps, spoilers for everything Mandalorian from here to follow, where he keeps flicking the switch,
Yeah, yep.
And he finally picks him up and puts him on his lap.
Yep.
It's like every parent can probably relate to that kind of moment. It's just so.
Then even when they're in the hut in that village, in this last episode where the little girl comes in, he's like, "Can I feed him? Can I play with him?" And then she starts walking around, and he's like, "No, you better not." And she's like, "He'll be okay. He'll be okay." And then she even calls him his son. I think at the end he's like, "You and your son can stay here." Or whatever.
What does she think he looks like Yoda under that helmet?
She tried to take the helmet off.
She did try to take the helmet off, yeah. I know, man.
That was kind of cool how he said that no one's ever seen without his helmet since being a kid.
Yeah.
But he directly takes his helmet off and eats lunch in front of the window.
Well, I think there's an overhang. It's dark.
I love how Joe's defending that.
Absolutely. It makes perfect thematic sense. Like, he wouldn't have taken his helmet off if he actually thought other people could see him at that point.
He does not realize that we all know what Pedro Pascal looks like.
No.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, Nelly, as well, since you hadn't seen the other Star Wars movies until recently. If you were to kind of take all of this in a vacuum right now that you're watching The Mandalorian, however, you know just as much about The Mandalorian as the rest of us do, right? So what's your preference? Does The Mandalorian kind of capture your imagination a little bit more than the actual original movies that spawned all of this did? Or do you still find yourself liking the original trilogy better than The Mandalorian series?
Honestly, probably The Mandalorian, just because I like the mysteriousness of who he is. I like the backstory. I want to get where he comes from. Obviously, they explained a little bit how he said that his parents got killed. I'm assuming that's the flashbacks maybe he's been having.
Yeah. I think so as well.
And then they
Yeah, we don't know. You know just as much as we do, but
Yeah.
assumption is that that's him as a child.
Yeah.
And then the Mandalorians raised him and just made him a badass.
Yeah.
So I like that aspect.
Very cool.
I'm hooked.
Yeah.
Do you like obviously the Mandalorian is better CGI, better graphics, kind of more of a modern 2019 take on cinema. Does that make it easier to watch than it does to go back and watch the original Star Wars trilogy?
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, watching the older ones, I mean, I'm trying to just think of it as watching it back in the day and just taking it in that way. But yeah, of course, being more modern, yeah, a little easier. But
Who do you think would win in a fight, the Mandalorian or Mando or Boba Fett?
well, probably Mandalorian or Mando, just because I've seen him fight more, and Boba Fett haven't really seen him do too much. So
And he doesn't. That's the
plus
sad part.
the new badass armor he got from all that Beskar steel. He just came into the guild all looking nice and sharp and shiny.
Right?
I like that.
Suited and booted.
And then the guy, I forget his name, Apollo. I call him Apollo, but I forget his-
Carl Weathers.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
Grief.
What was Grief? Was his
Grief
name?
Karga
Yeah,
is
he's like,
yeah.
well, hello, my friend. He's trying to like talk him up. Everybody's like looking at him all pissed because he's the one that got the bounty or whatever. And,
Yeah, that part's great.
yeah. And then of course he went in and saved Yoda, and then they all came and
So this Mandalorian series takes place 5 years, timeline-wise, after Return of the Jedi. So once you finish Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian will bump up right next to it. That's why you see when you saw the stormtroopers, you see that their armor is a little bit dirty, because the
yeah.
Empire that did exist no longer exists. And that's why at the beginning, when he's trying to accept his payment for bringing in the first bounty, he doesn't want to take Empire credits, essentially, because they're not worth anything as much anymore.
so they're pretty much not mercenaries, but the stormtroopers are really not with an empire. They're just on their own doing
There's probably pockets of resistance that
a
exist.
private security type deal.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's going to be remnants of the empire that exist
Okay.
because in the new trilogy, as they start to rebuild essentially the empire, it becomes the First Order, so they just rename it. And you're going to have remnants, and that's what a lot of the Star Wars lore that was taken away as canon existed with pockets of resistance, like Thrawn and stuff like that. These other types of characters that were like rogue generals that wouldn't give up their Star Destroyers and their armies. And
Yeah, they become these warlords essentially that kind of roam the galaxy. And,
but so it's interesting because the bounty hunters, they kind of exist outside of the technically the Empire's purview, although they're sometimes hired by the the Empire or the remnants of the Empire to track things down. So it'll be interesting.
And then another scene, I think was towards the end of the third one, where all the Mandalorians come and help him.
Yeah.
At first they were in the guild and they were kind of jealous because he's the only one that could leave the underground, or he said he was the only one that was able to do the missions or something like that. One of the big ones.
Yeah, I think that
Not the Boba Fett one, right?
I think they're just calling him heavy infantry Mandalorian on a lot of stuff.
When
but
he took his
actual,
Beskar to the main lady, and then to get everything melted down,
Yes.
and then the one guy comes in with the crew, kind of upset, saying why he's the only one that, I forgot what he said exactly, but anyways, towards the end of that episode where they come in and save him, and then he's in his ship, and then he comes flying in his jetpack, and he thumbs up or whatever, and then he's like, I need to get one of those.
I need to get one of those. This is the way.
That was pretty sweet. Yeah, I love that.
the
This is the
so
way.
good. But yeah, how my reading of that, so like the covert, which is where they are hiding out essentially.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think he's the only one that can go up top, but they try to mitigate how many of them are seen at once on the surface. But more than that, so like the backstory of Mandalore is that the Empire was really kind of ruthless to them. So that Mandalorian Heavy, I believe his name is Paz. I think he does have a name. It's not set on screen, but his name is Paz. Voiced by Jon Favreau, by the way. But I digress. Okay. It's more that the Beskar fell into the hands of the Imperials, whom the Mandalorians now also hate, and he was willing to accept payments from someone that they view as an enemy, and that the Beskar he got was from those Imperials.
Yeah, because he did say something that when he took the Beskar, he's like, "This is Imperial," or he said something Imperial Beskar, or something, or forged, or something like that. He said
exactly like he had been in their possession. It was stamped. Yeah, you're
Okay,
absolutely right
yeah.
with the Imperial sigil, almost, you could say. So yeah, I think that's kind of why, because he's pissed that the Mandalorian is earning a very lucrative living off of their former enemies, essentially.
Okay.
And since they're so honor bound, and like that's such a big thing, like I think that Mandalorian specifically is really pissed off by that. Yeah.
So who was the? I guess you guys know as much as me, but the guy who puts the bounty out on Yoda, who's he supposed to?
Oh yeah, Werner Herzog's character, like they just call him what, the not the operative. I don't think he even has a name. The client, excuse me. Is that the guy you're talking? Who he first meets with, who gives him the initial information to track down?
Yeah, where Apollo sends him to him. I forget his name. When he first goes in, he wants to get the other bounty, but he's like, it's only face to face, and then he goes to meet the older guy.
The older guy?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I believe he's probably a former Imperial of some kind, it seems like, which is why
he's called the client.
The client, yeah.
Okay.
And we, just like you said, man, you know as much as we do, we can assume that, yes, he has Imperial ties. He may have even been an Imperial officer,
Seems like it. Yeah, he's
Um,
got something.
Yeah, and clearly they want Baby Yoda's, what they call it, the material. Extract the material is what.
Oh yeah, because they were trying to do something to him. Yeah, and then the guy was like, "I'm not hurting him. I'm saving him," or something when he came to kidnap or take him back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool. I love the imagery they've got too, and like sigils are really important, so that's why they want to. Initially, the blacksmith asks, or doesn't really even ask. She's like, "Oh, the Mudhorn will be your sigil," and he declines, and he says that wasn't an honorable kill.
Oh yeah,
so that he won't take the Mudhorn as his sigil, but
which is an unbelievable kill that he took that thing and killed it with a knife, with one stab in the knife. It's like it's a 3-inch blade. It's not even
it's probably not even.
Yeah, it's probably not even piercing the skin originally of that thing.
Even so, yes, I understand that part wasn't the most realistic. My wife was watching that with me as well, and she's like, "I don't think that would have killed it." Like, I agree. Yes, I do agree. I don't think it would have killed it.
I can just imagine you yelling, "Go away!" Like you're ruining this for me.
So what did he end up
He's
getting?
using a vibroblade. It can penetrate deeper than a standard knife would be able to. Yeah, no, I forgot.
A sparrow or what?
Oh, the whistling bird.
Whistling bird.
Those are sick. Yeah,
that's what he got.
And then the mythosaur is that big kind of woolly mammoth looking skull above the blacksmith.
Okay.
So that's the mythosaur skull, which was a huge beast back on Mandalore that they used to fight, essentially.
Yeah.
Is what that is. And Mandalorians also used to have a lot of melee weapons too, which is cool. So if you look at their culture, it's not, the blasters that we come to expect necessarily. Like their ancient history, it's definitely a very kind of samurai style class, it seems like. So
yeah, they seem to be like their tribal instincts seem to be kind of like Native American almost as well.
Yeah.
Like that electric prong they have too, where he uses.
Oh yeah.
But no, it was
that thing is sweet.
it's a solid show. It's interesting too. I mean, and Disney Plus has 4 episodes left.
Yep.
And then they've got nothing really original coming out for a while. So it'll be interesting what happens with Disney Plus. But
yeah.
Other than that, you guys have any other things to put it to sleep?
Obviously. I got all the Marvels to watch and all the Star Wars.
You got a lot of Star Wars to get through.
Star Wars, Marvel. There are other shows too. If you guys checked out, they're not the high profile originals, but if you checked out their other ones, like World According to Jeff Goldblum, The Imagination Story.
I haven't seen them on there yet.
No,
I recommend them. They're good.
I've heard they're good. I've heard the Imagineering story is really done well. I'm working my way through Clone Wars right now.
Oh
cartoon,
yeah. That's good.
Which it's kind of you'll have appreciation for it after you see the prequel trilogy if you were to give it a shot as a cartoon, because it takes place between episode 2, episode 3, and it's like a 7-series show that deals with like the actual combat war between the forces you'll see going at each other. But other than that, I was just looking at the calendar. I don't know if we'll get another episode in actually before the end of the year. So I know that we're in December. We've been going every other week on Aliens and Cowboys just till The Watchmen is over. The Watchmen has 2 episodes left, so that will be finished up on the 18th. If you guys want to track that show, or you're not watching that show, or you are watching that show, Joe and I do a companion podcast called Watchmen for Nixon. Go out there, check that out. We break down every week's episode. Give that a review, give us a rating, subscribe to that. Obviously, we're not going to record on Christmas as a Wednesday.
Yep.
We probably wouldn't have. If we record, we'll record on the 18th, which we'll see what we have availability for everybody. But it's possible we won't be back until January 8th, because we're not going to record on the 1st either as a holiday. So we're hoping if we can get together, we'll get everybody, all of us four, Nate included, on the 18th. If not, we'll for sure be here on January 8th, all four of us back in the saddle and breaking everything down, at which point we will commence a weekly episode again of Aliens and Cowboys every week. So it's just it's a lot to do double podcasts. So we're hoping to see you guys on the 18th. Apologies if we don't. We will for sure be back on the 8th, and we'll be going every week after that, talking, again, pop culture. We'll probably talk about Mandalorian. We'll probably talk about Rise of Skywalker. I know we've been doing a lot of heavy episodes with Star Wars, but that's kind of taking up a lot of people's time right now. So we'll talk a lot about that. So if anything else to add before we wind down?
One thing, people need to start watching or catch up on Vikings. I started watching Vikings, and
that show's ending too.
Yeah, final season.
Okay,
nice.
All right.
Starting, and
that's one I need to watch. I have not started that yet.
Oh, it's a good one.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
highly recommend that one.
All right.
Very cool. Yeah.
Well, go out, and if you guys like what you hear, give us a rating, leave us a review, 5 stars. You guys, like I said, catch us here every week coming forward soon to you. If not 18th, if not January 8th, we'll be back. Again, find Joe and I every Monday. We record the Watchmen for Nixon podcast on the Watchmen television series for HBO, which you have not seen that. That is a fantastic show.
Yeah,
and
very
that's
good.
winding down as well. They only have 2 episodes left, I believe. And we don't even know if we're getting a second season at this point. But other than that, give us a rating, leave us a review, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell Nate's mom, and we'll be back with you guys next week. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.